Well, the growing cost of materials is driving an increasing number of students to piracy. In March of 2021 alone, 195 million people visited educational piracy sites. With over 1 billion publications downloaded illegally each year, some publishers say their revenues are being hit by as much as 23%. So there's clearly a problem and something needs to change. And the person making that change is Gauthier van Malderen, CEO at EdTech Perlego, who's joining us live from London. Thank you so much, Gauthier, for being on Counting the Cost. It's good to have you. So educational piracy is obviously a huge issue, but the bank of mom and dad doesn't have an endless stream of money. So how exactly does your venture work?
Yeah, so Perlego was built out of a personal pain point of mine, which was very expensive price of textbooks. I'd buy maybe an accounting book worth $200. I'd read 2 chapters of the book and never use it again. And what was really interesting is I was seeing that my friends and my peers were also doing the same. So what we've done is we've built a company which is on a mission to make educational content more accessible. In short, we help publishers recuperate revenue lost from the second-hand book market and from piracy through convenience. And for students, they get a simple space where they can find all their core learning material for the price of a single book.
So is hybrid learning the new reality then now?
I think it's very much so. Using the analogy to maybe remote work, in the early days when COVID-19 started, it was a bit awkward for us to, work remotely. And I think very much the same will happen here. Using our own, looking at Perlego, in light of COVID-19, we saw a huge acceleration towards digital, both in terms of the publishers. So many more publishers gave us their full collections. And then what's really interesting on the other side, faculty, students, and institutions became much more proactive of using, a digital product in their learning mix.
But Gauthier, do you think that students who pay thousands of dollars for in-person tuition would be willing to accept blended learning? I mean, many feel shortchanged by the whole experience.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think ultimately, yes, some students might feel a bit shortchanged, but overall, by providing convenience, by providing accessibility, and also by being more affordable, the total student population has a greater chance to learning, right? If I was to think about it today, maybe textbooks are accessed by the privileged few, whilst by providing a platform which is affordable, everyone, no matter where you are, could access their learning content.
But do you think online learning can really ensure global equity? I mean, if you take a look at the example of China, for example, the authorities there have decided that additional after-school learning is putting too much financial pressure on parents. So how do you deal with that aspect?
Yeah. Just to share some numbers, right? The global education industry is a $1.1 trillion industry. And what's really interesting is today only 4% of that is digital. So yes, you might have seen the recent news of China cracking down. Ultimately, it's on a subsector, right? It's on tutor platforms, test platforms, and exam prep platforms. But it's a huge, huge industry globally, which is still very much ripe for disruption and much more growth in the digital side of things.
But it's the case that, wealthy parents are, of course, able to get extra tutoring support for their children, but for low-income families, the outcomes very often are not so good.
I completely agree. And that's why at heart, we're on a mission to make sure everyone gets the same chance, no matter where you are in the world and no matter your background.
Right. And what about bridging the technology gap? I mean, technology can be isolating, of course. How do you overcome that?
Yeah. So again, to share some numbers, right? EdTech industry is in its infancy. Last year, a total of $6 billion was invested into education companies. This year, it's already at $13 billion and expected to close at $16 billion. And you're completely right. Some people might not have access to laptops or to internet. But I truly believe that by being digital, you can drive more accessibility across the industry. So, for example, with Perlego, we've got Perlego Lite, or we also allow students to download the books offline. So I think, on the contrary, digital here is to help bridge that gap.
Well, sounds exciting indeed. Best of luck on your venture. Gauthier van Malderen, CEO of EdTech Perlego, joining us there from London. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Fadi.